Hey, good evening, heathens. Welcome to another episode of the Wednesday Album Club. I'm one of your hosts, Marty. It's good to see you. And before I introduce the guys here, who you all should know by now, just a quick message. The Glorious Dead was supposed to go to Kalamazoo this weekend on Saturday to play at Papa Pete's with Lucius Fox and a couple other bands. I can't remember the name, sorry. The show was canceled, so it'll be rescheduled, hopefully, at a later date. So if you are planning to go to Kalamazoo, or if you live in that area and we're planning on going, don't. Anyway, gentlemen, good to see you. And Jim from Eihwaz Recordings, link in the description. Go buy shit, people. How you doing, Jim?
Doing good, man. I don't think I have anything interesting to report. However, I do have records. So, I'm a little late. I waited to finally get this in. I love the previous record, the God Slastering thing, but man, I really do like this new holder a lot.
It's really good.
Yeah, I mean it's catchy. The guitars are super dense, and and I love that it's like black metal, but there's a lot of down-tuned guitars on it, and the bass is just crunching. Her vocal is just searing. I mean, this is like everything I want in a black metal album. It's like black metal with a tiny little bit of guitar tone that reminds me of Ruins of Beveras, just a little bit. Like it's black metal mostly, but there's a little bit of Ruins in there, I think, and it's just really good, man. I know that Holder's got a lot of hype right now, but man, she deserves it. This music is awesome.
Done the work.
Is a really great record. Yeah. And it's one of my favorites this year. I really dig it.
Awesome live too.
Oh, dude, I bet with Tanner there, that'd been amazing, dude. Got a little red foiled Scream Bloody Gore there. Love this record, never gets old. It's like every time I listen to it, I'm like, I'm like, oh yeah, man, I forgot how awesome that riff is. I mean, Denial of Life is like the first death song I ever heard. So always one of my Christ, but all of it's good. The Sacrificial, Zombie Ritual,
Mutilation. Ugh.
Mutilation.
I love it. So good.
Always have to say it when someone says it.
Yeah.
And today, this got me through my workday, man. Thank God for Hammerheart, man. I needed it today. I needed that mellow, to me, mellow vibe, and it really gets me through the day. And was swimming along Oz Bay, man.
Hell yeah.
R.I.P. Corthon, gone 20 years.
Oh, wow. Yeah. This week, right?
Yeah, like Monday, I think.
Crazy. Cool. All right. Well, good to see you. Everybody go check out Eihwaz Recordings. Kellen, hot off his Traverse City, Michigan trek. Good to see you, brother.
Yeah, it's been, I guess, it's been a month, maybe 3 weeks or so almost. Been gone for a while. So happy to be back. And had a great time in Traverse City and came back with tons of vinyl. But today, so things I've been listening to. I guess I'll start off in honor of this week's pick. There's a new record coming out, I guess, this Friday. But I pulled out the first two releases by this band. This is the first one, Severe Torture, Feasting on Blood.
Oh, yeah.
That's a great band.
And
they got a new album coming out too.
Yeah, I think this Friday. It should be coming out here.
Did we get a promo for that?
I don't think so.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think we got one, but Misanthropic Carnage, the second release from Severe Torture. So some more death metal from the Netherlands. That band's clearly inspired by Sinister. So I wanted to bring that out. And then this came in the mail today, and I've been listening to it digitally, but it is sitting back there on the turntable.
Oh, yeah.
This is the brand new Arcetier License. Talked about this previously, but yeah. We don't see a review on this. I don't know if anyone's called it yet, but it'll without question be top of the end of the year for me. I love this band, and over the past, I'd say 5 years, I think they're just getting better. So if you have
already amazing
on Van Records, but crazy cool kind of Icelandic, Nordic, kind of black metal. There's tons of interesting sort of orchestration and like ambient work in there as well. But if you're in fear of sitting, most of their records go for about 80 minutes. So it's not an easy sort of listen, but if you're invested, it's 100% worth it.
Yeah, they are just a whole world to step into. What an amazing band.
All right. And Ben.
Yeah, Arstidorfsons. We say a lot of bands are good, but that band is just a whole another level of amazing. I've been mostly listening to this album we're talking about tonight.
Me too.
Like 90% of the time. But on Monday, I had the chance to open up. So I had a band like fall off of a bill, and my buddy was like, "You want to just spin records before the show?" And I was like, "Hell yeah!" So I did that. I had a great time. And the bands that I opened for were pretty good. This is one of them. They're called Desolus. System Shock. That album cover tells you everything you would need to know about it. Just toxic thrash metal. Got a little bit of Creator, a little bit of South America kind of stuff here and there. Just really, really, really good. And then Spider played, Spider with a T. And they were just like kind of gruesome, vampiric, perverted, thrashy, melodic kind of black metal kind of shit. It was fun. And then outside of that, I discovered this band called Sadism from Chile, and I ordered it, but I don't have a physical copy of it. I was watching the Jamming Out All Badass stream last, maybe it was 2 Fridays ago or something, but Chris Mezaduris from Bloodstorm was on there, and he'll do this thing where, I'm not sure if this was the topic or not, but anyways, he just played this demo from it, and oh my God, this is great. 91, their first demo came out. It's South American for sure, but really, really, I keep talking about it, right between that thrash and death metal kind of thing. It's just perfect for me. I sent it to you, Marty, but everybody should check out Sadism. I'll put a link in the description. Actually, the demo was called Perdition of Souls, and you can get that demo with from the Perpetual Dark demo on CD for pretty cheap. Sadism.
Right on. Okay. I'm up next. I think Kellen, you picked tonight too, by the way. Just I don't know if you knew that, but
I've been gone long enough. I kind of figured I was.
It was your turn. Yep.
Yeah.
All right. Well, for me, yeah, it's been a busy couple weeks. Kellen and Corinne were up here. It was great hanging out with them, listening to a lot of stuff for Heavy Metallurgy. I've been mainly listening to Sinister and Halloween. That's all I've been listening to, but I'm not going to plague you all with all the Halloween I've been listening to. But I'm going to show some.
You already did.
VCLT that I got the other day. Got 2 records from Jurgen. We got Paramecium, being Zoomed of the Earth. This is a reissue on Bombworks.
I played that the other night.
This album rules. It's a great. It's, if you like My Dying Bride and like Jesus, then you should check out Paramecium, is what the hype sticker would say. But this rules. It's really great. With Jason Sherlock of Mortification and Horde fame. Jurgen also sent me this gem. God, it's so cool he sent this. The debut Pink Cream 69 album, and it's autographed by Andy Darris and 2 other dudes from the band. So for those of you who don't know Pink Cream 69, this is the band Andy Darris from Halloween was in before he joined Halloween. This is kind of a glammy record, to be honest. The album that came after this isn't. It seems a bit more like Halloween. It's still fun, and Jurgen, thank you for sending this. This is killer. I'm not huge on autograph stuff, but it's cool that this is cool. This is a cool piece to my collection. And in the same package, Kellen sent me a little something, which I have not listened to yet either. And I don't know how to say the name of this band. Eihwaz?
Oh yeah.
With the tertiary right. I can't read that font. Yeah, tertiary right, maybe. This is Daniel Corchado from the Chasm. His more traditional metal band. I've always wanted to check them out, so Kellen must have been reading the airwaves and had to spare one of these laying around, or he didn't like it. One of the two. Holy shit, almost 47 people in here tonight. Cheers, everybody. Good to see everybody on a Wednesday night turning out. But yeah, I'm looking forward to checking this out as well. So I showed off VCLT tonight. But tonight, we are here to discuss this infinite classic, Sinisters, Cross the Styx, the debut album from 1992 on Nuclear Blast Records. And it's funny, my question kind of leads up to this, but the Wikipedia page is very barren other than, lineup and albums. Sinister is a death metal band from Schiedam, the Netherlands, formed in 1988. They have released 14 albums, most recently Deformation of the Holy Realm in 2020. This hasn't been updated in a while. The band was idle between 2003 and 2005, after which Odd Kloosterlord, the only constant member, switched from drums to vocals. The band finished with recording of the 15th album in October 2023. The recordings are currently in the studio for mix and mastering. Soon they will announce the release date. I think that album has been released. I don't know for sure, but
nope.
Okay, it has not yet. So yeah, we're here to talk about 1992. We're talking about Cross the Styx. Kellen, it's been a while since you've been on. So why don't you start us off? What were your first impressions of this? And if you want to talk about the artwork, go for it.
Yeah. Well, the artwork, I guess, I completely dig it. It's nothing exceptional necessarily, but I completely get it. Matches the aesthetic and the sound of the record. I have no problem with the artwork. All good there.
Yep.
The first impression with this, so we were listening to this on the way back from Grand Rapids, and I'd spent a good more time with Diabolic Summoning, the record that comes after it, and I had not spent a lot of time with Cross the Styx. The first impression for me is, Marty had mentioned this kind of blurs a line with some thrash influence. What grabbed me initially is how the guitar tone on this record, it is somewhere, it reminds me somewhere of Deicide's Legion. There's something about like the aggression in the guitar tone. There's sort of leading edges aspects to it, but that was sort of the first thing that stuck out to me. This band, I always, refer to, and in the lead up to this evening, pulled the Severe Torture records. Like, I have a really affectionate relationship with the brutal death metal from this part of the country, this part of the world. The Netherlands brutal death metal scene for me was really important when I was getting into death metal in the late 90s and early 2000s. So Sinister was always a frame of reference band for me from the bands that sort of were appearing at the time. But I never spent a lot of time with them specifically. I always it was like a counterpoint or a point of influence. So it was really cool to spend time with this record, and listening to it in the car is one thing, but when I got a chance to I'm talking to Marty and TJ in the background who's falling asleep on the way home and all this stuff, I didn't get a time to actually really as dedicated listening. It kind of washed over me, and so it was awesome this past week to spend more time with it, and it's a killer record.
Jim,
this is another one of the mini albums that I heard first through Marty, before hearing on my own, and liked it. I haven't listened to it in years though, so it was good to come back to it. Just like Mike Villain says in here, this is a great example of brutal thrash. I mean, it's punishing riffs, blasts over staccato, alternate picking, all over the place, a lot of cool dissonant chords, dissonant runs, this is not happy thrash at all, and is so much the better for it. It's got so much energy. Even with the Legend of Zelda sense of the beginning and the end, to kind of bookend the thing, it just kind of it just works, and I think the reason why this album is still really fun and intriguing listen, even since 92 is it's riff salad, but they're all good riffs. They're all cool, and every song has that moment for me where I'm like, yeah, you know what I mean? It kind of grabs me there, you know what I mean? And I wouldn't call it a hook. This is not a hooky album at all. of to me, but this is like just like top tier riffing. I'm a sucker for like kind of like staccato triplet playing, and these guys, it's like on every song. So for me being an old thrash kid, it really it has a appeal to me, but it is death metal. Like those vocals, the drums, I do feel like, though it's got a huge thrash influx, that this is death metal, in an early form, and just as punishing as whatever came after it. So good stuff.
All right, Ben.
Yeah, a band I was kind of familiar with early on because Nuclear Blast had a lot of the Bastard Saints kind of stuff floating around. They really promoted that stuff pretty hard, but for some reason this album kind of didn't really get that much of a push back then, and I think that kind of echoes the attitude that we've seen with all metalheads since its release, I think. But so I wasn't very familiar with it really at all. I have like the next 3 albums on CD, and I like them well enough, not super well versed on them. But for this one, honestly, I feel like a couple years ago I was like, I guess, yeah, you're right. Marty told me that they have an album before those, and I should check it out. So I've probably heard it like 3 or 4 times before this one, and I was like, yep, that's Sinister. So pleasure to really give this my full attention for a while, and it's exactly a Sinister album. They're a really unique band. They really do their own thing unwaveringly, and it is intense. It's unbridled. It is going for the throat. It is infernal. It is just absolute barrage of rage and stabs and cuts and hitting. It really, really takes you through the ringer in a great fucking way. So yeah, I loved it.
All right. Well, obviously I picked it, and this is a go-to road trip album for me. I'm a big fan. I've talked about this album a bunch, and it's eventually going to show up here in the album club. I have a big list, but Deception Ignored by Death Row, Germany's Death Row. Just a super techie thrash album, riff salad, riff. So hearing a more cleaned up iteration of that in the death metal sphere with Sinisters Cross the Styx. There's an element of riff salad to this, but somehow it doesn't sound like a bunch of kids just slopping riffs together and throwing them out there. There's like the composition in these riffs. And
no, there's experience behind there.
There's
man.
experience behind there. Odd's drums are, he can blast really well. He's a good drummer, and the riffs are just, they're air guitar riffs, man. And the way they return to them, recall them, and make them hooks, like little hammer-on things here and there, they become a hook to the song. It's a riff salad with thought and process behind it. And I don't know, the first time I heard this album when I first got it, I was blown away by it. And talking about the cover art, it's simplistic. You got a big old dumb skull on there with, I mean, this is a cheesiest album cover ever, but God, it's perfect. It works. It works. It's so perfect. I love Mike's vocals. I mean, Odd, he kept the band moving after all these years. He moved out from behind the kit and became the vocalist, and he struggles. I've seen some live stuff where he can do it, but it's not great. He sounds okay recorded, but Mike, I love his vocals. You can kind of understand what he's saying, but it's still brutal and sick. I don't know. I think this album is probably my favorite Sinister record. I also really highly regard Afterburner as another really good one. I like the classic run. I like Diabolical Summoning as well, although they went more American sounding. They stripped it down a little bit and they went for the American sound. People loved that. That seems to be where the jumping on point for a lot of people. Hate, I really like that record. Bastard Saints EP, I mean, they put out some great stuff, but this one is a standout, something special that they kind of returned to on Afterburner. But let's get into my question here. This is not the greatest question, everybody, sorry. Sinister has become an institution of European death metal, yet seems to lack the public support and fervor other bands like Dismember, Asphyx, Pestilence, and others seem to enjoy. Why do you think that is? With their debut album, Cross the Styx, they were on the right label. They had an exciting and complex sound. They possessed the right amount of brutality. Though it seems more people tend to gravitate towards their second album, Diabolical Summoning, with its more American slanted sense of brutality. Was it the complex thrash influence that turned people off, or was it something else? What do you guys think? We'll start with you, Jim.
Prepare the poser bag of pillows, but and potatoes. But I've never heard Diabolical Summoning, so
It's good.
I don't
It's
know.
a good record. It's a good record.
But I will tell you that being that this was 92, and at this point, Blessed the Sick was out, Altars of Madness, of course, had come out a few years before. We've got Cause of Death. We've got a lot of like good early death metal right here. I do think that probably the thrashier bits probably maybe hurt it a little bit, in terms of its presence. That's completely a guess on my part, because as I mentioned earlier, these guys were under my radar anyway. Heard them first through Marty. But that would be my guess, but when I kind of think about it some more though, I mean, the first Pestilence album had a lot of thrash on it too, and but it had a lot more visibility. So I don't know, like now thinking about it from that perspective, from the same country, much higher visibility, man, now it doesn't make any sense to me at all. So
yeah, it's tough. It's a tough one. Why?
I don't know, because to your point, I mean, like I love how Ben described it. Yeah, this is just an absolutely just abrasion of an album on the ear. You know what I mean? And if that's not death metal, I don't know what is. I mean, so I don't know why, because it immediately, just like you guys are saying, like the way that these guys compose their songs, there's a lot of originality here. You know what I mean? They go dissonant when you think they're going to go melodic. They stop a scale halfway through it and then do something else, and there's a lot of unpredictability about the riffing here, even though they return to their riffs, which I don't think is a bad thing. I like the bands go back to it, because sometimes when you get hit with so many riffs and they never return to them, you're like, hey, I know that this song has something cool in it, and then you're like waiting to flip the record around again to hear it again. But it's not like that with them, and I think that's to their credit. So yeah, I'm gonna pull a big weak answer on this one, saying like, I don't get it. I don't know why.
Oreo, I don't know. Yeah.
Well, this is fair to say. I scratched my head at this fact. Yeah.
All right, Kellen. Same question. Second verse, same as the first.
So I guess like if I rewind this a little bit for me personally, like if the brutality aspect of it, even the record that follows, what was developing in America, I still think this band never reaches the level of kind of like breakdown side of things that
they become European. They keep them European.
Well, right. I think like there's something about how they retain a sense of brutality, but without trying to group themselves into an American sensibility and how you write song structure, like and I think that's a positive quality, right? I think it helped to develop a brutal sound in the Netherlands. And then when I kind of want to take that and pair it to Pestilence and the Styx in your question there, those bands to me, if they're all representing the Netherlands within death metal, they sound dramatically different from one another. There's not a uniformity to their sound. You can look at it like Dismember, and you can group themselves in, even though they don't sound exactly like Entombed or Unleashed. There's a strong regional contribution to what Swedish death metal is. And I think different parts of America, if you want to talk about the Northeast and brutal death metal, if you want to talk about the Floridian scene, Sinister, I hear this record and they are pulling, yes, from some American sound, but still retaining a kind of European sensibility. There's a darkness to this record that but it's not blatantly satanic like Deicide, right?
Yeah.
And I think that if you had a Glenn Benton figure leaning into Satanism and promoting the band, like that probably would have galvanized some degree of support, and whether it had been exploiting Satanism for the sake of, visibility that may have helped the band. They don't go that route. Like, this is very much a purist death metal band. You are 100% here for the record, and there's no shtick associated with it. So I think that also, not having a figure like that to lean into the extreme aspects of the side of the band, also didn't work for them. So between a regional aspect, a subject matter that they probably weren't the most extreme given the time period, and the fact that they retain a European sensibility without sort of selling out to an American sound, I think all those things made it difficult for them to sort of group in with anyone else or potentially promote beyond sort of like a death metal purist sort of sound.
Right on.
Always giving the best fucking answers. Damn
Yeah,
it.
mic drop, whatever.
It doesn't compare to my I don't know.
Oh, Oreo. What do you think, Ben?
Tough guy to follow. I've got a couple theories. Oh, by the way, new flag. Thanks, Tanner. I think a name like this, while it's pretty indicative of their sound, I think people wanted the most extreme thing there was back then. In 1991, there was a shit ton of stuff to choose from in death metal. That was the banner year where all the great death metal albums came out. So you have a name like Sinister. That's like the spirit Halloween of actual evil satanic things. So I think it's not like a name that would draw people in a whole lot. Pardon. So there's the name. I don't think that's a huge draw, but I think it fits their sound. What I think it really boils down to is Sinister have forged such a well-developed idea of a sound, and they just beat you against the head unrelentingly with it. And it's kind of taxing, honestly. And I think it can kind of be a hard thing to crave after you've listened to it. For the less experienced, maybe pedestrian death metal listener. So there's other stuff that I think is a little more easy on the ears. Like, I think Cannibal Corpse is easy to listen to compared to this because they've got like a lot of groove. They kind of lay back off of the abrasive blasting brutality. And I think like what specifically I think Sinister does that I've never really heard another band do so much is their compositions are so well-intentioned. They aren't riff piles at all, I think, to me. They are there to establish a certain idea with you and then punch you right in the face the second you are enjoying it. It's not like some albums are this, catacomb of right turns and left turns. It is just absolute all-out violence at every single turn. Every riff is killer, and the second they establish, I think, a certain rhythm or a certain idea or a pattern, it's just right off. It's just punching you right off the rails again immediately. And that can be, I think, kind of hard to follow through with this entire album with. You guys getting that vibe from it too?
Yeah, for sure. And I will say, from my point of view, if I go back to thrash, I loved American thrash metal. Don't get me wrong. Thrash kid for sure. But I loved German thrash. I listened to Testament. I like it. Testament gave me a certain thing I loved, but Creator, there's a darkness there. You listen to Pleasure to Kill, there's some chainsaw riffs, but there's a darkness to that stuff. And when I listen to like Cross the Styx, I put my finger, why do I like this so much? Because it has that darkness. And when they went Diabolical Summoning, I remember buying that record when it came out and being a bit disappointed because I didn't want to hear knuckle dragging American death metal. I didn't want to hear, Cannibal Corpse-isms and stuff in a European mindset of death metal. And, people I always say, oh yeah, Diabolical Summoning is my favorite. People are so into that obituary knuckle dragging riffs, which cool. It's cool. It's a cool thing. But this offers so much more. They prop up so much more to chew on, so much more interest and excitement in the music. And again, why that alone doesn't bring people to this band. Oh, granted, they changed a little bit, but they always maintained their sound, but they simplified it a bit. They did come back to it on albums like Afterburner and stuff like that. But I remember back in the day getting, promos from the label for Hate, and I remember getting the Bastard Saints promo. I mean, they promoted this band. The band, their promos went out. I don't know why. I don't know what. I mean, I think it's awesome the band is still going, and it seems like when I see some live stuff, there's always people there watching them play. So, maybe they're bigger than I think they are. I don't know. But it just seems like no one ever talks of them. And another band that kind of in the same realm, maybe not stylistically, but Grave from Sweden. The first 3 Grave records are amazing. No one ever talks about Grave. Even when they reformed, the stuff isn't as good, but it's still good. But no one ever talks about Grave. I love listening to the early Grave stuff. And it's always Dismember. It's always Entombed. And even Unleashed gets a bone thrown to them more than Grave does. I don't get it. There's just some bands that they came out during the same time, but they just don't have the same gravitas as public love that the other bands do. I don't know. But I don't know if I answered my own question here, but I'm kind of with Jim. I have no idea why this band wasn't bigger, because this record, I think it's an exceptional record. And it's a very interesting record. It's a catchy record. It's brutal. It's everything I like, all in one package. But let's discuss the musicality and composition of Cross the Styx. Jim.
If you play guitar, even as a hobby, you're gonna love this record, because it's just intriguing. I mean, every riff is like, it's that great combination of like familiarity but technicality, where you're like, hey, you know what, I could play that, but I couldn't come up with it. You know what I mean? So that's what's interesting about it. We're not talking about Obscura or something like that. It's not like that flashy, but it just comes from like a weird place, where, it's to Marty's point, this is dark thrash, this is like, but through that death metal vocal and through those like, splintering, snare hits, delivered in that death metal way, like this kind of dark thrash riff style is like, for my ear, just super intriguing. It makes me want to, pick up a guitar and go. There's a lot of that going on here, and like I said, I love triplets, but they sound so much more powerful when the drums are just slamming over it like that, just constantly. You know what I mean? It isn't, how Ben was saying, Cannibal Corpse. There's that groove to it. This is like. The anti-groove thrash, you know what I mean? There are headbanging moments on it, but most of it is so fast, like, you don't have time to kind of like, grab it that way, but it'll still kind of like, blind, just kind of strike you blind with like the way the attack of the riffs are just it's very visceral, so, and like I said earlier, like, this does not sound, like juvenile in any way. Like I do feel like these guys were playing a long time, and then I just kind of was looking on archives, and sure enough, their first demo was like 1990, man. So they had 2 years to get their shit together before they released this record, and they sound to me like a band that like spent a lot of time rehearsing, spent a lot of time on stage, and throwing what didn't work aside, working the songs over and over to make sure that there was no fluff, because there isn't a sort of like feeling where it's going on too long, and not to me anyway. Like I feel like the songs just have a great flow to them, and that's not something that can come from singing in front of a metronome for hours on end. That just comes from like learning how to play, learning how to construct a song, and then really, taking the care to kind of like perfect your craft in terms of songwriting. And I think that's kind of where these guys shine. It just sounds very, very put together. They made all the use that they needed of those 2 years to get ready for this record to sound. It just doesn't sound like a debut. It's so clean and precise to me. Like it sounds like a band that had been playing for years, And so, yeah, musical and composition, these guys got it done. And I think on that one song, what is it? I'm trying to remember where that bass break is. On I think it's Putrefying Remains. It's about a minute in and there's like a bass break on it. And I think it's a fretless bass. Is that fretless? It sounds like it's like. I was like, dude, that's really cool. It's not like we haven't heard of that before in death metal, but it's so rare when in this era, outside of Steve DiGiorgio albums, like when I hear it, I'm always like super excited about it, anybody, if you can play a fretless bass at all and not make buzzy sounds all over the place, you're a talented musician. And so I only bring that up to illustrate, I think that the level of musicianship that's on this record. Again, it's not something that's going to make you like, oh, you know what, these guys just make me sad. It's not that level of like proficiency. It's the level like you can like befriend this style of playing, sit down and maybe figure it out, but then it will take you a long time to be able to write something that works this well from song to song.
Right on. Kellen.
Yeah, so I completely agree with the points that all of you have made in terms of the level of like execution from the musicians on this record. For me, there is absolutely no fat here. This is the like, for me, what makes this important as a distinction relative to a dark thrash band. Like, I know we've been talking a lot about the subject. Heavy Metallurgy has had a good amount of brutal thrash on as of late. And when I was listening to this record, I felt it was a perfect example of making a clear departure from death thrash to a death metal band. When they actually decide to sort of drop the hammer and this blast beat kicks in and they shift gears, it's a level of punishment and aggression that I think it separates them from what a death thrash band is. It is so well executed to me, and that is the kind of proficiency that I think separates it from sort of an early iteration of death metal to one that is completely confident and well established. They are so well sort of versed in terms of, Ben's point about they know who they are, they know who they want to be, they've carved out this niche sound. When this band wants to be extreme, it is clearly a death metal band. Yeah. And I think that separates it relative to like Massacre or Pestilence even before them is there's a level of like, it almost borders on grind, but there's no, the punk side of things is gone. It's that pure death metal kind of proficiency and talent as musicians that I think is a great sort of distinction. Like, we can pull this record, we can compare it to Pestilence happening before them and say, this is a point of demarcation. Like, this is a transition period where now we are fully a death metal record for me. Yes, there are plenty of cool dark thrash riffs on this, but when this band goes extreme, it is 100%. We are in a death metal sound right now. Mm-hmm. To Jim's point about the blast on, like, okay, I'll take it a step further here. Like, I'm not a big
bring it, Kellen, do it.
I'm not a big car person. But I've once been a friend of mine for a brief moment in time had like a rally car, and he took me out and he was like, I'm going to open this up for a brief moment for you. And he just put me, it like terrified me to hear an engine open up like that and get pinned to your seat. This band dynamically is amazing. When they decide to sort of pop, like snare, and then riff. Oh my God. It is for me. I came back to that aspect on this record multiple times. Just because they can go from like a thrash riff to a death metal thing with a kind of force and conviction that you rarely find or is as powerful on this record. So that side of it, I think, is the biggest thing in their songwriting that made it important. Is their ability to navigate, yes, a death, like a thrash sort of thing, but firmly establish themselves within death metal. I just a few other pieces I want to throw into that. These songs are also incredibly concise. Like the song length, you know, I think a couple of times they get past, they get up to 5 minutes once. But what they can pack into,
Doomed is 509. Yep.
Yeah, what they can put into in like a 3-minute song is really cool. Just as a brief example, and I'll get off the mic here. I think it's Compulsory Resignation. That song opens, I think that might show up on a favorite tracks later. Opens with like a clean little doom thing that doesn't last more than, it's kind of a smooth, slow guitar, maybe 10 seconds. And then towards the back end of the song, in the last 30 seconds, they do a callback and they reintroduce it. They bring it into a thrash riff and they close the last portion of it, like last 10 seconds with like a punishing little death metal blast. They understand how to utilize things incredibly well in an incredibly limited amount of time. It just, for a debut record, I think while it's not as potentially diverse as some other bands or the kind of exploration that's going on, the songwriting here is I think incredibly well constructed, and it shows greater diversity than sort of the track listing would insinuate.
Okay, Ben, follow that shit.
Hey, man, you said it all, dude.
I'm so glad I go before and not after.
You're right, yeah. You're like doing the Sinister thing to me. Completely agree with all of that. Boy, where do I? Yeah. The music. So there's a lot of thrash bands and death metal bands that sound like they accidentally did something that was clever or just kind of eventually figured out what they were doing. But these guys had blood in their mouth from the beginning and figured it out in 2 years and just executed it in such a deadly way. I won't repeat that kind of trope that I've been describing the album about. But I really think this is an album that deserves really careful attention if you give it that, because it can beat you upside the head left and right. But what it really asks of you is, can you take it and can you like really focus in on the little eccentricities that are actually going on here? And that was what was different for me this time around than has ever been listening to Sinister. I thought it sounded kind of like the guitar player was kind of just like blasting on the riffs in a way. The rhythms are just so locked in. The guitars and the drums are just absolutely deadlocked in together. And rhythmically, everything is just so notched and perfect that's how they execute their brutality most of the way. So there's some things where the guitars are doing like pretty much the exact same thing, but every once in a while they'll kind of like spin away from you and kind of do something that might kind of distract you for a minute to make those brutal moments just even more punishing. And that was the thing that I took away from. I was like, maybe that's not as present on the other albums. Maybe it's more like groove laden, but on this one in particular, I think that's what is so exciting and refreshing about this album, is just how they are able to use those tiny little nuances to really make it worth like actually focusing in on swimming with the shark, as it were.
All right. Well, I look at this album as when I was younger. Again, this goes from a guy that didn't know how to play guitar. I'm just making riff salad. And I really gravitate towards the way that these riffs are constructed, but like I said before, it isn't coming from a juvenile place. The riffs have form, structure, and all together, like Kellen said, they get in, they get out in a short period of time, and they give you a lot. And the thing that I really love about this is I could listen to this album. I listened to it 5 times the other day. And after all these years since it came out, I got it right around 92. I have never gotten sick of this record because the riffs to me are so exciting, because as a guitar player, I'm older. I'm locked into all the mistakes I make have become my style. But I listen to how fresh these riffs are, and even air guitaring along with this record for how many ever years. I really listen to the riffs, and I'm still not sure where it's going to go, but it goes in the right place every time. It's like they don't resolve the same way. It's so cool how they wrote the riffs on this record, which is what they went away from as they went on. Like after, I keep mentioning Afterburner because it's a really good standout record. It sounds like the feel of this album, but more composed, a little more commercial, if that makes sense. But I just listened to the riff work on here, and I'm just in awe at how well done it is. And the thing that excites me about it is because after all these years, I'm still questioning where it's going, but it always ends up in the same place, and I'm psyched with the payoff at the end. And that to me,
when you're listening, like, this part's coming up, I know what's going to happen.
Yep. And there's these little hooks that they weave in and out. It's so fucking genius. And I just, the people don't talk about this. That's why it's been on my list forever. I'm glad to finally pick it. It bums me out that people don't talk about this record because it is really well written, really, really, really well written. And it just, modern day death metal. There's some cool shit going on too, like that. We're talking about Engulfed in the chat. I showed it last week for the What's Been Spinning. It's a great record. But it's still within the modern death metal framework. It's not really surprising. It's just really well done. This here to me is a surprising record. Even after all these years, it still entertains me till no end. And it's exciting, and I want to listen to it. As soon as it ends, I want to listen to it again. That to me is a sign of a perfectly well-written record that pulls from the past, the thrashy nostalgia riff salad, compacts it into a more concise, and the blast beats added in here. The blast beats hit just when they need to on this, and they really, really propel the record, for especially the middle. We're going to get in our favorite songs here. The middle of the record is fucking savage. It's just more blast beats. It is just absolutely crushing how they start off the songs with like this catchy little thing, these little hooks, these little note based kind of hammer on things, and then they go into these blast beats. It's like, gritted teeth through the whole thing. And it's so they keep you, the ebb and flow is perfect. They walk this perfect line between technical note bass to chord progressions and blast beats. Perfectly written. Production. Let's talk about production.
One thought after this album, to contrast, after this album is over with, I am exhausted. I'm sweating. I need a minute.
I want more. I hit play again. Like, yep, I want more of that. All right, let's go with Kellen first. We'll make Jim follow Kellen this time. Talk about the production.
Bastard.
Yeah, the flux capacitors and the Knibbler pins.
We all gotta follow the brain.
I'm gonna make you go after him next, Marty.
So I mentioned in the lead up here that the guitar tone on this record was the first thing that stood out to me. It's just because I feel like it's brought enough to the forefront, and to Jim's point about like triplets, I don't know, because I don't actually play guitar, I don't have enough sort of knowledge into the technical aspects with like palm muting and how that you can play into it like with an amp or a pedal, but being able at every single moment during the sort of like strum and palm mute aspect of this record, like hearing those like clean cutoff points on how an individual plays, whether they're triplets or every aspect to how this guitar tone sort of reveals leading edge sort of distinction, I obsess over that. I will trade in all sorts of polluted, down-tuned stuff for more records that have this kind of clarity and attack. I totally miss.
They're not tuned down. That's why they're tuned down to maybe a D, maybe. I don't know.
Like, that's why we have someone who plays an instrument on that, giving me some insight here. But like for me, that was the first thing that I stood out, is how clear that can sound while still having sort of enough authority and aggression to sound like a death metal record. Like they aren't sort of winding down the actual force of the guitar work to sort of be super clean. It still sounds like there's enough aggression in it to be a record, but I just love how you can hear all those little intricate like really tightly dense, not kind of riff style. They take like what is a thrash distinction and just push it far enough without concealing anything. or blurring anything or sort of washing over the edges.
It is all discernible.
It is, yeah. So it's I love that guitar tone. The other part of it that I want to say, like, I'm interested to see what Jim has to say, because it's not a bass record for me at all. I think the one thing that suffers is the guitar tone is so dominant and such a highlight that it does kind of conceal enough of the clarity for the bass. So outside
the bass is weird. The bass tone's weird, but it works. But it's weird. I see why they did it that way. I'll get to that though.
It's just totally a guitar record for me, and that's why you're here, and that's why you love it. The part that I do also want to point, and I know Ben's a drummer, so he'll be able to chime in here. How, like, you don't often hear like enough perfectly timed blast beats to understand the distinction, but like right when Steve Ashheim from Deicide, that is my reference point. Just, it almost feels like he's ahead of the beat, but you realize he's on time and pushing the sound. And I think that's something, because often drummers are trying to chase it to keep up. When you hear someone executing it and actually elevating the song, it just takes those moments to a whole other level. I think the blast beat on this record and the drumming performance is well captured enough to sort of also amplify that aspect to their sound. So the drum work and the guitars for me are what stand out in the production and are like A+. I absolutely love them on it. I don't have any problem with the bass or the vocals per se. It's just they don't feel like they're the standout hallmarks when I listen to this record.
All right, Jim. I'll be right back, guys.
So production-wise, like, yeah, I mean, Kellen is right. Like, yeah, this is a guitar-forward record, and it's all the better for it because there's so much going on there, and you know, their distortion level is very tight and kind of controlled, and it wouldn't be as impactful if it wasn't that way. Now, I'm a big fan of a saturated guitar where the distortion is like a wall of sound and kind of washes over you. You know, I like the effect that does too, as by way of contrast, but that would make no sense for the way these guys play guitar, and it would make no sense on this album at all. You know, what you want to hear is that riff. You want to hear that clarity. You want to hear those notes being, you know, picked with that sort of precision level. And that's kind of what makes it's what creates the heaviness here. If there was like an oversaturation of the guitar, you know, what makes these riffs cool would just be buried, and the album would be less interesting because of it. I think in terms of the mix, like, I like how the vocals kind of sit clearly on top of everything. The guy's got a great, very strong death metal voice, and there's a clarity there, you know, and easily kind of just is easy to discern, if I can spit this out, what he's saying. He enunciates very well, which is really cool and kind of rare, and overall rare in death metal, but on this album it's much appreciated, and it kind of goes with that whole like clarity and precision that they go with. You know, the bass and the drums, like here the rhythm section, to me, like this particular aspect of the production, to me it's very Morris sound. It's very, very Florida, you know, like, you know, and that's really not a dig. You know, I live in Florida. I, you know, bought, you know, Cause of Death in Tampa when it came out, you know, and so I'm okay with the Florida sound, you know, but in this case, I do wish, and to Kellen's point, yes, that the bass was a little louder and the mix could punch through a little bit better, but that's kind of indicative of sort of that Floridian influence in the early 90s. So I wasn't that bad with it, because there is, like, you know, a couple bass breaks here, and when they come, they're you know, welcomed. And you know, that we've got kind of that sort of like, you know, sample to kick sound we've kind of come to associate with you know, the more sound. Man, that dude's drumming just kind of like it doesn't matter. This could be Saint Anger style production on the drums, and it would still be awesome, because this dude he's that good of a player where he pushes past what's going on in you know, behind the knobs, but you know, behind, you know, the mixing board. It really makes every riff on this album 10 times heavier because of the choices he makes as a drummer behind it, and he kind of elevates and the riffs and turns them into death metal like this. I think a large part of what makes this album not thrash is his playing. He is the guy that takes these riffs and pushes them off the cliff and makes them death metal. That and the great vocals, but yeah, and so kudos to him for taking what in terms of the rhythm section is kind of like an American death metal production at the time, and just pushing through it, past it, knifing through it with his style and making it his own, and making the album better for it. So.
All right, Ben.
Yeah, I don't really hear a lot of the thrash style here, but I don't. Maybe I'm not familiar enough to know what particularly you're hearing. I think I hear a little bit of like forced entry kind of here and there, and also like weirdly enough, there's some moments like to one of Kellen's points. There's some really, I'm not sure really how to. Kellen put it better than I could, but I think I can hear some things where they may have influenced bands like Portal and how they just lock in absolutely rhythmically together and just kind of drive these little intricate little sort of harmonies. But anyways, the production here is super crucial to making selling their identity as a band, which is, I think every element serves one another. There isn't an overarching vocalist. This is a guitar album, I think, but everything just kind of plays so well together in driving their idea of the rhythmic brutality and just the compositional unexpected turns at every moment. So everything sounds super perfect, I think. I wouldn't change a single thing about it at all. Actually, I did notice, I think it makes sense, but there really isn't much cymbal to be heard on this thing. There's not much, maybe a little bit of hi-hat sometimes in the blasting, but I have not heard a crash throughout the whole album. And I get it, like this is all about just pummeling you with the crunch of the guitar tones, and having those cymbals ring out and splash just wouldn't really make sense with the sound overall. So it sounds killer. Every element there is deadly. The bass sound, I can't really hear it, so I can't really speak to it at all. I tend to think most of the time on an album like this, I wouldn't mind hearing more bass, but I just don't feel like I have an ear that's tuned to being able to discern a bass player in a nasty metal band like this. But yeah, that's the way it sounds. Is absolutely great.
All right, getting back to Odd's drum performance, it just following along with these riffs and keeping everything together is interesting enough. He doesn't need to do a lot of flash and flare, but I really like when he's in the pocket. He can get in the pocket. He makes these head bangable beats. He throws in a blast. In his transition, I think he's responsible for the smoothness of the transitions on this record. It's very, the way as choppy as it could have been, it isn't. The way he plays, it smooths it out. But production, again, a guitar heavy record. I love the fact that you can hear everything, and I can hear the bass. I wish the bass was a bit louder, but like on the one song that Jim mentioned where it's like that whole thing, cool. There's another couple parts where you can hear the bass cut through, and the bass itself, the sound is kind of frumpy and weird. It's kind of a weird frumpy tone, and I kind of get why they did it. It's clean. If you start adding distortion and start adding beef to that, you're starting to step on the guitar frequencies.
Yeah.
I would have liked the sound they had turned up a bit, but maybe they put it in a place that it was supposed to be. Oh, I should mention, this was recorded and mixed at Main Street Studios, Faustbach, Germany, mastered at TT Mastering in Berlin, Germany. It was co-produced by Sinister. Also, Alex Krull from Atrocity was a co-producer engineer on this, as another guy. I can't read it because my eyes suck. But I really love the fact that even though you can hear everything, the drums sound like they came from this time. It sounds like the proper drum production from this era. I like the fact that there's a rawness to this. There's one song where Mike like does this scream and it like it red lines. You could tell it red lines the levels and they keep that static in there. He does it a couple times on the album. It's cool. It's cool they left it. It adds to that intensity of the album. Like pushing over into the red is very cool. Production of the guitars is great. I like the sound of the drums. You know, Ben's right. Not a lot of cymbal brightness, but that's okay. Again, you start getting all these extra frequencies. It starts tripping up. It starts stepping on the guitars, and really, you know, the drums.
And nobody's gonna step on your guitar, right, Marty?
All right, and you know, drummers want to hear their cymbals in every piece of the kit, but really, this is a mean thing to say because it isn't meant to be mean. I understand wanting your
every year's been here it comes.
I know you want to hear your instrument come through, but really, people aren't listening to death metal all the time for the drums. They want to hear the guitar riffs. They want to hear the vocals. Those are the most important things. The drums are there to hold it all together. It's the meter. It's the meter. Yeah, it's cool. It's the meter and the fact that the drummer can't play in time.
You're a bastard! Why do you have me on these things?
But yeah, I think everything is where it's supposed to be. It's a great production. Least favorite songs, Jim.
Man, I really like the title track, man. Cross the Styx is just awesome, man. And it's got a backwards message. Come on, man.
Wonder what that message is.
Oh man. Yeah, you know, it's got that kind of like a slower tempo bouncing riff, you know, that it gives you that vibe, like you're on a boat, like it gives you that sort of like motion feeling. And of course it's like surrounded by just, you know, riff after riff after riff and killer drumming. So yeah, that one's definitely up there for me. I mean, there's something to be said about every song on here. You know, Doomed, man. You know, more of those really awesome triplets that I love. And then the speed comes in like really intense at 4. And dude, I gotta call this out because the drummer does this cool weird start stop thing with his snare. He'll be like pow 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 pow. Pow, 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 pow. He comes up, I'm like, what is he doing there? Like, and I haven't heard anybody do anything like that before. And again, like there's all these like little elements, if you pay attention on this record, that are just very unique, very different. And something as small as that, just like hesitating on a snare hit, can make your song sound so different, can give it so much character. And so, yeah, I definitely had to call that out. I love the dissonant chords that are on Sacramental Carnage. You know, anytime you can like throw in a dissonant chord in a faster death metal song, man, you kind of got me hooked there. Obviously, you know, I've already mentioned the bass break and Putrefying Remains, really cool. Didn't expect that. I like the doomy start for Epoch of Denial. That was a cool, interesting moment. That sort of like doom element on the record that completely did not see that coming. You know, while it doesn't, you know, last the whole song, it again gives this band more color, gives the album as a whole more color. So yeah, there wasn't any song on this record that I feel like is a slog. So you know, I if I had, and this is complete nitpicking here, you know, if I had to say anything, it's I think that the intro is a little long at the very beginning. Like I kind of wish I'd hurry up and just get to the song. Like, and both the intro and the outro, like, definitely very Super Nintendo sounding to me. You know, I was like, either this is really a really, really old Final Fantasy or like, you know, Legend of Zelda 92, you know, but doesn't take anything away from it. There was a lot of that going around in 92. And my old band in Atlanta used to have, we actually, I don't know if you guys, what was that Secret of Mana game? We actually would open our shows with like sample from that. So I'm 100% guilty of doing the exact same thing. But notice I didn't say anything about the actual songs, right? So that shows you, how awesome it is. So definitely check out, if you're not going to check out anything, check out Cross the Styx, the title track for me.
Yeah. Kellen, did you go yet?
I've not. No. Oh, all
I'd love
right.
to follow you.
Look at this at the captain of the ship. Here we go. So favorite songs. I agree. So for me, it took a couple of tracks to kind of get to the center of it. So if my criticism, there's no bad songs here, but I actually, when Doomed gets going, the fourth track, if you don't include the intro, or if you do include the intro, that's when this record starts to really grab me. And that's like one of the slower sort of, it's kind of like a galloping thrash riff that pushes most of that song along. And then the other pair to that, I kind of picked out my favorites in pairs that I felt was similar, was the Perpetual Damnation, which is the closer. Both those songs take their time getting going. And I enjoyed that a lot about them. I complete 100% with Jim. Epoch of Denial. I had the same sort of thing with Compulsory Resignation. They offer some slower parts, but this band transitions incredibly well. So they go from like 15 seconds of something it's in one little lane, and they get on to the next section beautifully. And it's not that it's like a slow progression necessarily, as much as like when they want to shift gears, they do so with incredible amount of conviction. So well. I guess that's 4 songs. The other one that I wanted to pull out, I think, is Corridors to the Abyss. That song's 2 minutes, just over 2 minutes long. And it starts with almost like a Slayer sort of like back.
It's a headbanger, man.
Yeah. And then it pop, like thrash riff kind of come in. That's a bit more intricate before it just decimates you into death metal. It's just one of those things where I remember listening to Rain and Blood, and they can do so much in a short amount of time. Sinister takes that like concept and just elevates it in a way that I think is much more of a death metal example. So that song might be my favorite on the entire record. I don't mind the Super Nintendo intro outro aspect to this.
I think it's very sinister sounding. But yeah, I didn't even think it was Nintendo until you said.
I know some people are like, I don't care about this intro outro nonsense. Get on with the record already. Like, give me the riffs. Like, I don't mind in these intro outros. They go for a minute and a half. It's not like 4 minutes of build up or anything like that. So this record breezes by, and you, to Ben's point, you kind of survive the brutality of it, and then if you're Marty, you listen to it 4 more times. So, yeah. But I have no bad songs here. It's like I said, we've kind of talked about how concise and well sort of organized this record is. So no bad songs at all.
Ben.
Hard to pick a favorite. It's all killer. Kind of to a point I didn't really get around to it is I feel like compositionally, it seems like you're going through the exact same machinations throughout each song. It's all about the unexpected turns and chaotic things that happen exactly on a dime when they should. It's like something's going to happen, and it does. Anyways, the songs all just, there's no filler whatsoever. I picked a least great song, I guess. The first song, Perennial Morning, is kind of like, okay, we're going. It's good. I get it. But really the back half of the album is where it really, really, really starts getting good. And I really like Corridors to the Abyss. There's a little like kind of synth harmony going on over the top of that. That's super unexpected.
Yeah.
That's like, after, getting into track, what is that, 7 or something on the album? Yeah, 8. By like to introduce a little synth riff that far into the album, it's like, Jesus, I thought I heard everything at this point. This is nuts. And I love that, like, that's how far we've gotten at this point in the album. So for me, that I just picked that one out as my favorite, but not to slag any other songs whatsoever on it. Those are my favorite and least favorite. I think I burned through all my thoughts on that one too. You guys covered it pretty well.
And then there's a great headbanging ass riff. Like after the second verse, that riff on Quarters, the Abyss is just like, oh man, that was really.
The only agony on this album that you're experiencing is that the thing you just heard and liked is over with. It's always over with by the time you really sink your teeth into it. It's like the second you get a taste of it, fuck you, out of here, another one. The intros and outros. I feel like the intros and outros aren't really on brand for what they're going for. Maybe Nuclear Blast was like, this is a little intense, guys. You mind putting a little Zelda on the front and back of it? Yeah, okay, whatever. I don't know. I could take it or leave it. I don't really care for it. I feel like when a band deserves to have an intro that's pretty dramatic when they follow through with something that deserves that grandiosity to it. This is not the kind of album that needs that kind of thing, but it's fine. It's whatever. As long as it's under a minute, I don't really give a shit.
All right. Well, it's hard to pick a favorite, but I always sitting right in the middle of the album is Compulsory Resignation. That to me is the climax of this record. It's more stripped back to unrelenting in its drive thanks to blast beats. The chorus is simply the name of the song, but the way Mike breaks up the syllables really sells it. The second verse and pre-chorus riffs are masterfully designed. Absolutely great song. And they followed up with the 1-2 punch with Corridors of the Abyss. Merciless headbanger where hammer-on note fills act as a menacing hook before the blasting starts. To have this much fire and legs midway through the album, and then it just, like Ben said, the second half of the album, they start off strong, they end stronger. It's really, really killer how they start this off. Looking over the track listing, really, Doomed. What a great, the longest song on the album. Great. I like Perennial Morning. I like the intro and the outro. I think I've always liked it, hearing like the cranking of the chain type of thing over that synth line. Very cool. And I like how they incorporate synths at weird intervals throughout the album over the riffs. Very cool. Again, it sells the darkness element of this. Perpetual Damnation, excellent closer. Epoch of Denial, what a great song, man. What a great song.
Crusher.
Crushing song. And I can't fault this thing from start to finish. Judgment, final thoughts. Jim.
This is gonna be similar for me. This is a 9 out of 10. I'm with you, Marty. Like, this is something that you just won't get tired of. I hadn't heard it in a long time. I'll be picking this up. I should have bought it years ago, but because you know what? This is one of those records. It's like, I'm not going to get tired of it. I just won't. Yep. There you go, man. But sitting here talking about it tonight, I can tell you that most of the time when we listen to these records over and prep for the show, like I don't want to hear them again for like a year. Because we're listening to these things like 6, 8, 9, 10, 12 times. Over and over and over. But as we're talking through the songs, we're like, oh yeah, that one has this part. I'm like, I want to listen to this again, like tonight.
Yeah, I feel you.
I want to find those moments again, and re-experience them. So that is really rare for me. But I truly do feel that urge. So man, 9 out of 10 all day.
All right, Kellen.
Yeah, it's awesome. I think we're all, I don't want to speak for everyone here, but this record rules. And I guess I kind of want to, we'll skip that. Yes, go get it. It's awesome. I will absolutely, if I were to find it, I'd 100% buy it if I hadn't spent already a good amount of change picking up record recently. But
did they have it? Did they have it at Vertigo?
No, they did not. Oh. But I guess to the intro, outro, evil side of things, that I just want to briefly talk about that, and I'll get off of whatever, move on. That could have been one of those things where it may have, if they had leaned into the evil aspect of their sound a little bit more, that could have maybe like really pushed them out, made them a little bit more successful potentially. And it's kind of the initial question we talked is like, why didn't this band? They kind of halfway do it right on this record. They don't fully lean into a completely realized kind of satanic sound. So maybe that held them back. But this record is 100% go grab it. Classic. Cool.
All right.
Cool.
Ben.
I found it on innersleeve.com for $38.95.
Inner Sleeve, I've never even heard of it.
Yeah. I used the metal detector to find it.
Oh, there you go.
Or $42 from Rushmore Records, or $31.93. There you go.
Even the Cosmic Key reissue?
Yeah, here's actually one on Discogs. Anyways, yeah, final thoughts. Yeah, use the metal detector. It is great.
It rules. Metal detector rules.
This album crushes. It's absolutely brutal. It's 9.5 out of 10 easily. I respect it as a statement piece for what it is. I respect it as, I guess, an experimentation in bringing this idea to its fullest iteration. I don't think this band could have taken this very specific idea much further. So I'm going to go check out, I think, the rest of their albums and give it the amount of detail that I did this one and kind of get an understanding. But I feel like they're going to just pale to this one after having like really have been mind blown by it. That's about all I had to say about it. Get it, pick it up. Do not miss it. I guess the only thing that I can take away from it is, like, personally, it's a really taxing listen, and I cannot sit through it 5 times in a row.
I can. It's not taxing. You're a wimp.
Yeah, I guess I'm a wimp.
Crystal Age was a more challenging listen.
Oh, that was a challenging one for sure.
Like, that was a more bonkers, like, oh my god, kind of.
It really is. Yeah, like to A/B those, I think Sinister is like, their style is something that I can comprehend in the moment. Exactly. But Crystal Age is something like I never have the focus to be able to understand what truly is going on ever on Crystal Age. And so, like, I feel like since I can't understand exactly what's going on in the moment with Sinister, it's taking that much more of my attention span and energy to comprehend and digest it in the moment.
Gotcha.
All right. Well, for me, obviously, I picked it, and it's always been a favorite of mine. It has been. I've talked about this album a bunch on this channel. I've shown it in videos, and before we even started doing heavy metallurgy, and it to me is brutality with class, and that is what I like. And little message to all of you new death metal bands that are coming out. You know what? There's other bands than Incantation. Incantation rules. I like Incantation. There's other bands than Campbell Corpse. Campbell Corpse is great too. I like them as well, but dig a bit deeper for your influences. The Dutch scene, the Netherlands, all that stuff, Germany, they have great death metal bands. And this to me is technical, but there's the way they write their songs, there's a level of replayability. I disagree with you, Ben. Like I said, I could put this on 3 times in a row and wish I could spin it again. It's just one of
personal differences. Yeah,
it's a personal thing, and it's just because I've sat with this record since it came out, so I'm very familiar with it, and I find I've worked through all the hang-ups about being too technical here and there. I know when things are hitting and when it's laying off, and I don't know. I love this record, and I do want to say that if you're a fan of this record, let me see here. Hold on, guitars. Let me go to Ron Van de Polder, who was the guitar player on this record. Him and 3 other ex-Sinister members went on and did a one-off album called Weapons to Hunt is the name of the band. Blessed in Sin. This sounds like early Sinister. They did one record. It's really, really good. Check it out. But to me, this is Cross the Styx is the pinnacle of the Sinister career, which that sucks to say that because they put out a bunch of records, and I've got a bunch of their records, and you know what? They're all good. They're all good records. They're a good band, even though odd who was the drummer for this album and the drummer for a long time. He moved out from behind the kit, and he's a singer now. He's the only original member. He does a good job at maintaining the Sinister aesthetic. But this album is special in their catalog. Also check out Afterburner. That's another absolutely crushingly great record. But yeah, that's it. Anybody have anything to add? Kellen has been away for a while, so he's going to be picking for next week. Oh, wait. Yeah, this is a 10 out of 10 for me, by the way. 10 out of 10. Is it perfect? Nothing's perfect, but for me, it's a 10-10. I have no problem calling it a 10. I've loved it all these years. It's all good. Kellen.
Oh God, Jack's pressuring me here. Sorry. He's gonna. All right, fine. I'm so sorry. I pulled this aside, Jack. But so we hadn't talked about a grind record in a while. So I pulled out. This is one that from my sort of little youth. This is Boston's Watchmaker with Kill, Crush, Destroy.
Okay.
Nope.
I'd be surprised if Pat knows these people. If this might be his town. So
I remember them. I remember another album from them, like with a skull guy on it or something, and some ruins or something.
Kill, Crush, Destroy by Watchmaker will be next week. And show notes Friday. It's me and Ben. We're going to be doing a show. Ellen and Mel. Ellen and Mel, it's their anniversary. So Ellen will be out with the missus for the anniversary. So congratulations to both of those wonderful people. Me and Ben, we're waiting on hearing back from a guest, and we don't know what the topic is yet because procrastination. Yeah, procrastination is the mother of invention. That's the way it works around here.
Yep.
But we have a Nocturnus review that was posted Monday by Sue and her husband John. Go check that out. And yeah, we'll see you next week. You guys all rule. Everybody go check out Killing for Company. Go check out Brainsmasher. Go check out Eihwaz Recordings. All links in the description. Ben's doing good with subscriptions. Let's get Kellen up to 1,000 this year. Come on, people. If you're not subscribed to Killing for Company, he don't post a lot, but what he does post is awesome. Go check it out. But yeah, we'll be back next Wednesday with Watchmaker, and we'll see you guys on Friday. Cheers. Have a great one. Great week.
Cheers.